Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Infogol Football Betting Podcast. As always, I'm joined by Liam, Kelly and Steven Railston. Liam, we've had, it's been a hectic few weeks with Champions League football, domestic football back to back. This was the final round of Champions League football. Before we take an international break, was there anything in particular that caught your eye?
From the midweek games, not really. It was a lot of goals, a lot of big score lines. I think teams are just tired now. It's starting to show the tough schedule and goals galore. I suppose it's good for us, but it would be nice to have this little international break for them.
For sure. It looked as though Manchester United's defence was tired in Turkey, the way they just let Demba Ba run through one-on-one. Quite sensational, that. Stephen, I know you've been covering the Championship quite a bit for us recently. Is there anything from midweek Championship action that you maybe saw and was surprised at?
Well, funnily enough, I was trying to watch the PSG game in midweek. My dad was in the living room and he made us put the QPR derby game on. So that wasn't exactly the most thrilling encounter, but obviously QPR got the win. But apart from that, no, not really much. Obviously, Watford got a good win, didn't they? And that was a good
game. That PSG game as well.
Yeah, it was exactly. I was a bit annoyed at my dad making us miss that.
Now, QPR derby trumps PSG RB Leipzig all day long. I'm quite happy this week. Obviously, just heard news of Sheffield Wednesday getting their points deduction halved. So that means that we are now in positive points, which is a first for this season and means that our chances of survival are a little bit better, I would imagine. Still bottom of the table currently, but things are looking a bit more promising. So I'm a little bit chirpier, a bit happier this time around. We'll crack on with the bets. I mean, I'm swerving the Championship action this week for my bet. There's not too much that I like the look of across the Championship slate. Stephen, anything in particular that you like the look of? Where are you going for your nap this week?
Well, I'll begin if I can. It's a very American thing to do, isn't it? It's keeping in themes with the election of blow me on trumpet a bit. Nearly had a full house of bets on last night, on Wednesday night, obviously, as we're recording. Preston tipped up that against Reading and Watford win. Fortunately, Nottingham Forest couldn't do the job of under 2.5 goals, but I'm persevering and I'm going for under 2.5 goals in Nottingham Forest versus Wickham at 1.95 on Saturday afternoon. Now, we all know the start Forest made. It was a really poor start under Sabri Lemouchi. They lost their opening 4 games, but Hutons came in, and while the results haven't been electric, it's clear he has started to steady the ship. They averaged 1.8 ex goals against per game under Lemouchi in that 4-game period, which was obviously really poor. And under Hutton, since that Blackburn game, since his appointment, they've averaged 1.06 xGA per game. So it's clear that they've made positive strides, in defence. But the problem is, I don't know where the goals are going to come from at the moment. Obviously, they scored 2 against Coventry in midweek, as I mentioned. And one of them goals was a late penalty. Lyle Taylor, he's now the top goal scorer this season. He scored 2 goals. And Lewis Grabban, I've wrote a bit about him this campaign. He scored 20 goals last season, just over. And he's yet to score this season. He's racked up 3.9 for XG. And he's actually now injured out for a few weeks. So they'll be missing him again. And his form is obviously a problem. So yeah, there's questions about whether Forest can score and going forward. And in 5 of Hutton's games, there's been less than 3 goals. Obviously, that would have been different last night if the penalty didn't go in. And then you look at Wickham, and fair play to them. They've started to pick up some results in recent weeks. Obviously, they beat Sheffield Wednesday, Jake's team, and beat Birmingham on Wednesday night and drew with Watford. So some free solid results there. Prior to that run, they've conceded over 2 XG per game, and across those 3 games that I've just mentioned, they've brought that way down and they've looked way better in defence. And they've conceded an average of 0.90 XG per game. So they've clearly made some good strides in recent weeks, and I'm bidding for that to continue. And I think this game will be a tightly contested one. And yeah, not many goals. So under 2.5 at 1.95, little under evens. I think that's a good bet.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Are we surprised at Wickham's upturning form?
I'm not really sure, to be fair. I mean, they were just so bad, weren't they? The numbers were incredibly poor, going forward and in defence. We were talking about Akinfenwa, weren't we? I think he's 39 and he's had a good part of play, to be fair. He's looked quite good when off the bench and holding that ball up. But how sustainable that is for Wickham, I'm not so sure. That's what I was writing in my preview, so we'll see what happens in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of people wrote them off quite early in this season after the obviously torrid start. They're now, well, they're still above Sheffield Wednesday and above Derby now, so things are looking much more positive. Forest, interesting to see what happens with them. I thought Chris Hughton was a really good appointment, but it's yet to get going fully. Obviously, that win in midweek could really propel them as they try to ascend up the table. But yeah, under 2.5 is a better like in that one. You made a good case there. Liam, where are you going for your nap this week?
I'm going to stay in the Championship. I'm going to go for the big game of the 3 p.m. matches, I think. It's Norwich versus Swansea. I fancy Norwich to win there. I don't know whether it's a lack of confidence from the manner of how they were relegated last season, but they had stumbled out the blocks a bit, and I'm just starting to think they're hitting the stride now. I mean, the talent they've got is off the scale. We've all seen Emi Buendia's touch and finish from last week. He should be in Premier League, really. I think they've sort of turned a corner now. I know they drew 0-0 with Millwall in midweek, but they created almost 2 XG in that game and peppering them from quite far out, but they should have scored in that game, really. Over the course of the season, they've managed 17 XG and only scored 12 goals, so that'll start to turn around, averaging 1.69 XGF per game. So it's some really impressive attacking displays recently. I think that's just, like I say, they've turned a corner. I know they're playing Swansea, who are yet to lose on the road, but they're struggling to create away from home, averaging only 1.22 XGF per game. So although the defence is really solid, but I just think Norwich will be too strong for Swansea. 2.2, I think it's a really good price. I'll be taking that.
Yeah, it all sounds good. And I mean, 2 really strong teams at this level. Obviously, Swansea got to the playoffs last season and have started the season well themselves. So that'd be an intriguing game to watch. And at the prices, Norwich do look a decent bet, as you've said. I'm going to, like I said, there wasn't too much that I like the look of in the Championship. So I'm going to go up to the Premier League and look at Friday night's match. Brighton versus Burnley. It's not exactly a glamour tie, but there is a bet that I really like in this. And mainly because it's such a big game all of a sudden at the bottom of the table. Brighton winless in 5, Burnley bottom of the table winless. So these 2 teams are struggling in terms of league position. Obviously, we've spoken about Brighton a lot on this podcast and on Infogol.net, that their underlying numbers have been really impressive overall this season, averaging 1.5 expected goals for per game and 1.3 expected goals against per game. So their process is that of a mid-table team to top half team, but they've just not been getting the results. And what is a little bit concerning is the fact that their last 2 performances have been their 2 worst of the season. Against West Brom, they created just 0.8 expected goals. Last week against Tottenham, they were deservedly beaten. Obviously, there was a dubious penalty in there, but they created just 0.4 expected goals themselves. So their attacking process does seem to be on the decline, which is a little bit of a worry, even though they do sit in a false position according to expected points. They continue to dominate football matches, do Brighton, but they don't seem to be able to take advantage. And that was the same story as last season, in which, again, they were on the fringes of relegation at times without deserving to, according to expected goals. So I do wonder if there is, maybe, obviously there's not a system problem because the underlying numbers are fantastic, but there does seem to be an issue maybe converting the chances, or I think this season in particular, they're conceding more goals than would be expected, and that's their issue. But they played Burnley, who were obviously well beaten by Chelsea last week. Scoreline was harsh according to expected goals. Chelsea were clinical, which is something we've seen quite a lot of them from them this season, scoring 3 times from 1.2 expected goals. And again, that carries on with the trend of Burnley looking pretty solid at the back. They've allowed just 1.2 expected goals against per game this season. But going forward, they really are yet to click. They've got most of their starting players back fit now. Obviously, Chris Wood, Ashley Barnes leading the line. McNeil's still in there. He's still fit and available, but they're yet to get going. They're racking up an average of 0.9 expected goals for per game throughout their 6 Premier League matches. Just 3 non-penalty big chances in there as well, which is a huge issue. So you've got a really tight game, I think, on Friday night between 2 teams that are looking like they're struggling in attack, but 2 teams that probably don't want to lose this game. And I do like the under 2.5 at the current price of 1.88. I think that Brighton will obviously dominate the football. Burnley will be happy to let them do that. But given the way Burnley defend, I can't see Brighton creating too many clear-cut chances. So under 2.5 to me looks a really decent play around 1.88. That's my nap. I think just have a little run round again. Obviously, mine's under 2.5 in the 1.88 for Burnley versus Brighton. Stephen?
Yeah, I'm under 2.5. Similar. Nottingham Forest versus Wickham at 1.95.
Liam?
Yeah, Norwich to win against Swansea at 2.2.
Nice one. And a reminder that everything that we discuss here is available to view on the free Infogol app. You can download that on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. all the probabilities, all the analyst verdicts, and the blog section as well, where we all write. That's all available on the free downloadable app. Okay, it's time to take a little trip around Europe, where we pick our best bets from across the continent. Liam, I'll start with you this time. What's taking your fancy?
It's a big game in Europe this weekend, the Klassiker. Borussia Dortmund hosting Bayern Munich. Fancy it to be a tighter game than people think, to be honest. I was tempted by a bigger price at under 2.5 goals, but I'm going to plump for under 3.5 goals because we know what Germany's like for goals. So at 1.92 for under 3.5, I know they met just after lockdown. Neither team breached 1xG in that game. It was a 1-0 Bayern win. So there is prior for this game to be a lot tighter than people think. Borussia Dortmund allowed 3.9 xG in 6 games, so really tight on that front. Bayern Munich have sort of sputtered a bit, like at the start of the season. I know they are top, but they created only one xG at Cologne last weekend, so I just can't see why it's 1.92 for under 3.5 goals. It's a given that this game is always kind of tight, especially at Dortmund. The Bayern Munich defence, I mean, they're as tight as ever. They're just over 1 xG per game they're allowing. So
I got a bit carried away myself, Liam, and it was one of the big first games after lockdown, wasn't it? That game.
Yeah.
And I thought there was going to be goals. I fell into the trap. It's probably the misconception, isn't it? And you're right, these games are often tightly contested.
If you say about fall into a trap, this is the kind of trap game that you fall into. There is a risk that it just completely blows up. Yeah, you're always going to take that risk, but prices, I don't really see it. So
I agree. Yeah,
I like that.
I think that these the Classicers in particular tend to be a little bit tighter because pretty much every week Dortmund and Bayern Munich are expected to win. So these games literally do define who wins the title in Germany. Just given the golfing competition between those top teams, so understandably will be tight. And I think that Dortmund's best chance of getting anything from the game will be to try and keep it quite congested and stop Bayern Munich being able to counterattack with obviously the pace that they've got. Sane, Gnabry, and obviously Lewandowski, who managed to get a rest in midweek. So, really like that play under 3.5. Like you said, I think post lockdown it was 1-0. It was a really, really poor match to watch. I think it was a Joshua Kimmich chip from the edge of the box
fantastic goal,
that won the game, and it could well take another moment of brilliance like that to win this one as well. So, I think we're all on board with that under 3.5 as a bet, Liam. Good shout. I'm going to go to Italy. Big game. There's a couple of big games actually in Italy on Sunday. I think Lazio hosts Juventus. I think you want to talk about that later, Stephen. But I'm going to go with Atalanta versus Inter Milan, which is a really big game. Obviously, two teams finished second and third in the league last season. They both made okay starts to the campaign. I think Atalanta had a little bit of a wobble before beating Crotone last week. Inter Milan themselves having a little bit of a wobble as well, drawing quite a few matches in the league, and obviously both suffered a real, big defeats for many reasons. Obviously, Atalanta got thrashed by Liverpool, but Inter Milan's defeat was damaging for their hopes of getting out of the Champions League in midweek. So, big game for both. Obviously, both teams posting a really impressive underlying numbers so far this season and last season. I think they were the top two in terms of expected goals. In terms of expected goal difference last season and expected points last season. So this is really the cream of the crop in Italy going head to head. I think home advantage will be key for Atalanta. I think the fact that there's no Romelu Lukaku for this game could also be really, really key. We saw how devastating Liverpool were on the counter-attack in midweek. Lukaku provides Inter with that same kind of threat, being able to bully and hold the ball up and run in behind. So, this is really going to be a really intriguing game. I think that at the prices, I am surprised to see Atalanta as second favourites. I think they've done enough, they've shown enough in recent years to warrant being at least marginal favourites in this match. And that ultimately means that I think that they're slightly overpriced at 2.84. They've been, like as I said, they've been exceptional for most part throughout this season, creating plenty of good chances as they tend to do. I think they're averaging over 2 expected goals 4 per game. Defensively, they've not been bad either. I think there's only one game in which they've conceded quite a lot of chances. That came against Sampdoria most recently, but that was a game in which they made quite a few changes ahead of the Champions League game against Ajax. So Really, really strong process. 2.2 expected goals for per game, 1.3 expected goals against. Inter Milan's is pretty similar as well. So they are two of, as I've said, the best teams. But just given the looking at the odds, like I said, Inter Milan are favourites, and that suggests that Inter Milan on a neutral venue would probably be around even money to win this game. And I think these two teams are a little bit, they're much more closely matched than that. So at quite a big price, I'm happy to chance in Atalanta to win around 2.84. I think that more of a price play than anything. I think that they are being underestimated by the market, and they've got the tools to really blow any team out of the water on their day. And yeah, I just think they just look a little bit too big, and the odds are probably doing a disservice to just how good this Atalanta team are. So Atalanta to win at 2.84 is where I'm going for my European best bet. So, Stephen, where are you going for yours?
Yeah, I'm staying with the Milan theme, but I'm going for the rivals. I'm going for BTS No in AC Milan versus Verona at 2.14, 214. Milan have been really interesting to follow. They've been steadily progressive from post-break last season. They went into that break, and I don't think the numbers were that fantastic, but they came out and they've just not stopped improving. The last taste of defeat in Serie A back in March, and this season they've averaged 2.23 ex-goals for per game, and only Roma and Inter, who obviously you've just been talking about there, are ahead of them on the XG4 table in Serie A. And look, it's no secret that the Italians are traditionally masterful defenders, and Milan have conceded an average of 1.18 XGA per game, which is obviously very, very strong. And against Bologna, Crotone and Spezia, it was their first 3 games of this season. They kept a clean sheet in each one of them. And I think this game's going to develop. It's a similar mold. Verona are a similar opposition. No disrespect to that caliber of team. And to add to that, Verona have been quite simply awful in attack. They've created an average of just over 1 XG per game. And only Spezia, who obviously AC Milan comfortably beat, have created less XG than them this season. They've also created just 4 non-penalty big chances. And to be honest, without sounding too depressing, I think the chances are quite slim at the San Siro. So yeah, my angle is really for AC Milan to keep a clean sheet. Obviously, they're heavy favourites, but I think the angle into this game is BTS No, siding with AC Milan to keep a clean sheet really at 2.14.
Yeah, I think that's really sensible bet, and I just had a little chuckle to myself at you calling Crotone Crouton, which was definitely a highlight of this.
Newcastle Jake, you see.
Highlight of this podcast so far. Let's recap the selections. I'm going for Atalanta to win against Inter Milan at 2.84. Liam?
I'm going for under 3.5 in the Classica 1.92.
Stephen, you're in Italy.
Yeah, I'm going for BTS No in AC Milan versus Verona at 2.14.
So that's the European section done. A reminder that all the odds that we are quoting on the Infogol Football Betting podcast are from the Betfair Exchange. We like using the exchange because you get better prices. You're betting against fellow punters as opposed to a bookmaker, meaning that there's limited overround. And yeah, you're able to back and lay bets on there, which is a really nice tool and something that I think we all use in particular. The current sign-up offer, if you are new to Betfair, is bet 20, get 20. And if you are a customer already, there's the free bet streak, which I highly advise that you get involved in. Okay, for the final section, we always look at our lays of the week. So that's basically betting on something not to happen. I'll start off. The big game, obviously, in the Premier League is Manchester City versus Liverpool. If you go on infogol.net and check out the match preview, you'll see a graphic that shows the percentage chance of each team winning the title depending on what the result is. That is really interesting to look at. Obviously, the Infogol model thinks that these two teams are by far and away the best 2 teams in the Premier League. We're calculating that whatever the outcome of this game, there's a 90% chance that the winner of the title will be one of Manchester City or Liverpool. A Liverpool win means that their chances of retaining the title are around 60%. A City win means the chance of them regaining the title is at 57%. So you can see just how closely matched and how important this game is for the title. A draw leaves it on a knife edge, with both teams having around a 45% chance of winning the Premier League title. So it's a huge game. Obviously, as I've said, the 2 best teams in the country, Manchester City, I'll start with them. They've been really impressive. Look strong and sturdy in recent weeks, which isn't something that you can always that they always get labelled, but they've allowed just 0.5 expected goals against per game across the last 6 matches in all competitions. So that's 3 Premier League matches, 3 Champions League matches. It's a monstrous improvement based on what we saw last season and the early part of this campaign. But it's come at a cost, as in that same period, City have created an average of just 1.6 expected goals for per game, which is considerably low. For perspective, Pep's side, they've averaged 2.7 expected goals for per game last season, 2.4 the season prior, and 2.3 in 17-18. So it's a huge decline in attacking process. Obviously, missing Sergio Aguero and Gabriel Jesus hasn't helped with that, but we know Jesus is going to return. Just be interesting to see how that affects their attacking process. Liverpool were mightily impressive midweek. I would argue they've probably been the most impressive team in the Premier League so far. Obviously, the results and some of the performances haven't exactly come across that way, but based on expected goals, they sit top of the Premier League table with the best expected goal difference and the best expected points tally so far. Looked shaky defensively, averaging 1.3 expected goals against per game and missing key defensive personnel, which is a bit of an issue, but the way in which they control the ball, control the matches with or without the ball, I think is really key for this game in particular. They've been extremely strong in attack, as they tend to, creating 2.5 expected goals for per game. Domestically, obviously Salah and Mane have been constants inside. They've been really impressive at the start of this campaign, but question marks obviously between whether Roberto Firmino or Diogo Jota should start, and Jota obviously netted a hat-trick in midweek, so it'll be really interesting to see who Jurgen Klopp goes with. I think this is going to be a really tight game between two very evenly matched teams. City's improving defence will make life difficult for Liverpool's attack, but I don't think that this Manchester City team will be overly gung-ho, and I think that could lead to quite a tight match in which we see Liverpool getting something from the Etihad. So I'm going to be taking Manchester City on at 2.12. I'll be laying Manchester City. I just think there's going to be such a tight match. I can see it finishing 1-1. I don't think there's too much between these sides at all. I don't think either team wants to lose this match because it would have such a detrimental effect on title chances. So I can see a cagey draw playing out, probably low scoring, but at the prices, I think the Infogol models price Manchester City up at around 2.25. So to lay them at 2.12 is an obvious value bet, and it's something that I can definitely get on board with. Stephen, we'll go to you next. Where are you going for your lay this week?
Yeah, I'm staying at Italy, and I'm laying Juventus versus Lazio. They're away at Lazio at 2.04. Now, I made the observation actually when you were absent that week, Jake, to lay them, that Lazio haven't made a brilliant start to the season, but I feel they've been performing actually quite well and not getting the results maybe their performances deserve. They won the XG battle against Atalanta and against Milan, and not many teams can say that. They're both top opposition. They lost both of them games in the end, mind. And then I tipped them up against Bologna because I noticed that and I was analysing the number, and they came out and won that game. And most recently beat Torino 4-3 away, another good result. And a bit of a funny story about that game actually. Ciro Immobile, he scored the leveller in that game. And it turns out he might have actually had coronavirus. So there's been an appeal, and he had to miss the Zenit game in midweek. Turns out he's got a negative test now, so he'll be available. But so just touching on the European results, obviously they beat Dortmund 3-1. They created 1.78 XG. That was a pretty comfortable performance. And as I mentioned, they had Zenit in midweek, and a few key players, not out of choice, were rested. So obviously Immobile was rested. Juventus, they've not looked fantastic under Pirlo. I think they're still a work in progress. And they've drew against Roma and Verona this season. And similar to City, their attacking output has declined, and it's been quite uncharacteristic. And they've averaged 1.58 ex goals for per game this season. And that's not really what we've got used to for a Juventus side that's 9 times champions. Lazio won this fixture 3-1 last year and created over 3 XG. And I just fancy the chances this weekend. I think things are starting to come into place. And obviously Immobile will be back in the fold. And I think, yeah, it'd be tough to beat.
Yeah, I think that the bookmakers definitely are overestimating Juventus at this stage of the season. They're definitely not the force that they used to be under Max Allegri. It's a massive transition season for them, and I'm not sure Andrea Pirlo's got them ticking just yet. So yeah, I do like Lazio's chances this week. It is in Rome as well, isn't it?
Yeah, Juventus.
Yeah. So yeah, for them to be around even money away at Lazio, who obviously were finishing the top 4 last season, I think they were second in our XG table up until the enforced break due to the coronavirus outbreak. So they are a really strong side when they're all fit and firing. And I think Ciro Immobile got himself sent off in that Inter Milan game, so that he was missing for quite a few matches in between then and now. He's now back. He's obviously their talisman captain. So yeah, I do like that as a bet opposing Juventus. Liam, where are you going? Round us off with your lay.
I'm going further down the Serie A table. I'm going to stick with the team that I've opposed over the last few weeks. It's Fiorentina. I think I backed Udinese to beat them a couple of weeks ago, and Fiorentina were really lucky to come away with a win in that game. No, Udinese, a surprise team near the top of our XG table. I think there's a game that I've sort of earmarked, waiting for the prices on against Genoa after the international break. So I'll keep an eye out for that.
Sick of you picking on them, Liam.
With every right, really. Last weekend against Roma, they offered nothing, 0.36 XG. It was really poor performance. They are odds against in this game, but I don't understand why the favourites. Never mind 2.2 on the Betfair exchange. They've allowed over 2 XG per game this season, and playing away from home here against Parma, they've only averaged 1.1 in their away games this season too. So, like I say, I don't see why the favourites, to be honest. Going across to Parma, I think we've seen it over the last couple of seasons, the serial overperformance of XG. They are sitting 15th at the minute. The numbers at home are surprisingly good. They're averaging 1.73 XGF per game and just over 1 XGA per game there. So it's a lot better than what we've seen in previous seasons. They have shown that they have got the quality to outperform their numbers. So coming into this game, I honestly just don't see how Fiorentina are favourites, let alone that short. So I'm happy to lay them at 2.2 on the Betfair exchange.
Yeah, you've made a good case there. I think they've really struggled to deal with Federico Chiesa leaving, obviously one of their main attacking outlets. And like you said, they've been creating next to nothing in recent weeks. So, but they are struggling in attack. And yeah, I think I was surprising to hear those numbers that you quoted there about Parma's home form. That's really impressive and definitely something to keep an eye on. So yeah, we've got 3 odds against lays, which is unusual, really. We usually like to try and tip odds on lays just purely because it limits your loss to less than whatever you're staking. So, but I think we're all pretty confident that these are still probably overpriced at odds against. They should be a little bit bigger in terms of the teams that we're taking on. So 3 lays there. Mine's Manchester City. Stephen, you're taking on Juventus, and Liam, you're taking on Fiorentina. So that rounds up this week's Infogol Betting Podcast. A reminder that everything we speak about on this podcast is available at infogol.net or via the free Infogol app. You can see everything from in-play expected goals to full-time player ratings to analyst verdicts to XG tables. Everything that we discuss, everything that you could ever wish for regarding expected goals is on the Infogol app. So I would definitely recommend going and downloading. Reminder that it is free to download as well.